And we are live. All right, everyone, welcome back to my channel, Baseball Talk with Nick Morgan. We are on episode 6 of our Who is Better player comparison series. This one is not necessarily going to be as entertaining as the last few. Gleyber, Torres, Francisco Lindor. Obviously, there is one clear shortstop who is the best in New York heading into the 2021 regular season. Nonetheless, we're going to dive into the stats, take a look at everything, and really see, who is better in what aspects of the game, at least when it comes to offense and these hitting metrics. Of course, a lot of you guys, if you're familiar with the game and a lot of the big name players, you know that one of these two immediately stand out. They are the best shortstop in New York baseball, one of the best shortstops in the game, if not the number one shortstop at the position here going into this upcoming season. Nonetheless, a fun discussion to be had. We have made our way through starting pitching, the bullpen, catchers, first basemen, second basemen, and today we are comparing New York shortstops. Who's the better one going into the 2021 regular season for New York? Without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and start diving into the numbers here. Welcome to the stream. Who is better player comparisons, episode number 6, Gleyber, Torres, and Francisco Lindor. So we're going to start things off by taking a look at the 2018 to 2019 stats. Of course, Gleyber Torres was not in the league in 2017. So what I usually do is we compare the 2017 to 2019 seasons. In this case, we're going to go 2018 to 2019. Then we'll single out 2020 and take a look at last season by itself, who was better in that given 60-game span. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at the 2021 Baseball Reference projections for both of these shortstops. But first, before we get into the stats, who is who? Well, Gleyber Torres is a 24-year-old shortstop for the New York Yankees. He debuted back on April 22nd, 2018 with New York, and he's in search of a bounce-back season. You could see his 2018-2019 stats aren't too bad, but last year he did struggle a little bit at the plate, not as bad as a teammate Gary Sanchez of his. However, he did not have the best offensive season. Defensively as well, he's already not the best with the glove to begin with, so he was going through his fair share of hard times in the abbreviated 2020 season. He's looking to go ahead, bounce back, and really get things back to his previous self, like in the 2018 or 2019 full year spans. Now he's in search of a bounce back, and also there is not a whole lot of pressure on Gleyber Torres as an individual to really have to go ahead and succeed, and by that there is some extensive limitations with this statement. Now, of course, by there not being a lot of pressure, I mean he is not someone that the Yankees need to produce in order to win games. If Judge and Stanton are healthy, we're going to rely on them. DJ LeMahieu, Luke Voigt, same applies. The Yankees have a lot of big-name bats. Gleyber Torres is not their superstar, so it's not like he makes or breaks the success or the failure with this team. But, of course, for the sake of, him trying to bring a better name for himself following the weird 2020 season, he wants to get better and hit a little bit more than he did last season. So not a whole lot of pressure on him as a team, but of course a lot of Yankees fans are interested to see how he goes ahead and comes back to a first full season since the 60-game span because of COVID. Now, Francisco Lindor of the New York Mets, formerly of the Cleveland Indians for his entire career, he is a 27-year-old switch hitting shortstop. His nickname is Mr. Smile. You could see it on the graphic right here. One of the best smiles in baseball. Lindor is a former first-round draft pick, selected 8th overall in 2011 by the Cleveland Indians. He debuted with Cleveland, and he made his Major League Baseball debut on June 14th, 2015. This offseason, he was traded to the New York Mets alongside his teammate and starting pitcher Carlos Carrasco, and he was traded to the Mets in exchange for Ahmed Rosario, Andres Gimenez, and a few other guys, but Rosario and Gimenez are both shortstops looking to go ahead and see if they can, with a change of scenery, really do well in Cleveland. Now, Gimenez just debuted in 2020 and looks to be really good in spring training this year, so the Indians definitely got a nice little return for Francisco Lindor, who following 2021 will become a free agent. If we go ahead and finally take a look at these 2018-2019 stats, let's determine who the best shortstop is in this time frame. Of course, I said this as soon as the stream started. There is a clear favorite for the best shortstop, but because I'm doing this series, we are running by every position. We know who the best shortstop is in New York, but nonetheless, again, we are going to dive into the numbers here, even if it's just real quick and really compare. So, first up for the New York Yankees, Gleyber Torres in his 2018 to 2019 seasons participated in 267 games, earning 977 at-bats, tallying 269 hits, and totaling a 275 batting average. So those are all pretty decent numbers. In 2018 was his rookie season. He was in the talks in the top 3 for the AL Rookie of the Year. It went to Shohei Ohtani at the end of the day, but Miguel Andujar, teammate of Torres and current teammate still, was also in the conversation. So Gleyber Torres, 267 games in 2 seasons, a 275 batting average. That's all good and dandy, but for Francisco Lindor, those are mere little league numbers. He had 301 games, 1,259 at-bats, 353 hits, and a 280 batting average. So he's going to lead in all 4 of those major categories. You can also see via the graphics on your screen right now that I made, it's very lopsided in 2018-2019. Gleyber Torres only leads in 2 categories, and the 2 that he leads in, he doesn't even really lead in. We're going to get to that in just a second. We've talked about games, at-bats, hits, and average. Now let's go ahead and turn our focus to runs and extra base hits. Gleyber Torres scored 115 times over the course of this 2-year span. He also acquired 42 doubles, 1 triple, and 62 home runs. Not to mention, I believe it was, in the middle of his break with the New York Yankees, and he was really doing well. In 1 year, he hit, I believe, 14 home runs against the Baltimore Orioles alone. The guy's got some pop in the bat. 62 home runs from 2018 to 2019. Really good for a shortstop. The New York Yankees fans, we ate that up. Really nice to see that production out of Gleyber Torres. Except for Francisco Lindor, he was able to hit 70 home runs in the same time frame with 4 triples. That's 3 more than the New York Yankees counterpart. 82 doubles, an extra 40. And he had 230 runs scored. Now for runs, doubles, and triples even, I've talked about this before in previous position player comparisons. And, those categories I just rattled off, the runs, doubles, and triples, don't necessarily make up for a good way to compare players, because runs, it is kind of up to the rest of the lineup to get these guys in and to score them when they're on base. Doubles and triples, yeah, that's all good. It helps the slugging, the OPS a little bit. Even the on base, of course, because they are making it to a base at the bare minimum. So you can't single out doubles, triples, runs, and we're going to get to stolen bases and stuff later and say, well, this makes or breaks a player being better than another, but they are still fun categories to look at here for the sake of stats. RBIs, the first category that Gleyber Torres goes ahead and wins here. In 267 games, Gleyber Torres had 167 runs batted in. Now, Francisco Lindor had 34 more at-bats than Gleyber Torres in 2018 to 2019, but had 166 RBIs. So a lot more games and only 1 less RBI. So it's very similar here. But Gleyber Torres finally goes ahead and gets an underlined and italicized stat in RBIs, meaning he leads out of the 2 that we are comparing. So 167 RBIs beats out Frankie Lindor's 166. Stolen base-wise, Gleyber Torres, the Yankees don't steal bases all too often, but their shortstop was able to acquire 11 stolen bases from 18 to 19. Francisco Lindor, again, ran away with this category, 47 stolen bases. 90 walks compared to 116 for the Yankees, Mets respectively. Lindor in a lot more games, a lot more at-bats, had a lot less strikeouts. 205 compared to Torres' 251. The on-base, the slugging, the OPS, all better for Mr. Smile. 344 on-base, 519 slug, 863 on-base plus slugging. Ridiculous numbers right there. Really solid. Gleyber Torres was close, though. A 338 on-base percentage does not fall behind by much. Even slugging was very close, 511 to 519. OPS was really the biggest differential. numerically, but still at the same time, 849 OPS, 863. Both are good for a 125 OPS plus, and that is a category I want to explain really quick. OPS plus, if you're not familiar, OPS is on base plus slugging. So you add your on base numbers, your slugging numbers, and that's what gets you that finalized OPS category. Now, when you have a 100 OPS or higher, that means you are above league average. So 125 OPS means that Torres and Lindor are both 25% better than the rest of the league. If you have an OPS plus below 100, you are below average in Major League Baseball in that season, or in this case, those seasons. Francisco Lindor is obviously going to be the better shortstop in this particular time frame. We're also going to get to 2020, 2021 projected. You're going to see a similar pattern then. But again, Francisco Lindor was always the favorite to be the best shortstop in New York as soon as he got here via the trade. You look at this guy's career, and he's been insane so far. Award-wise, which is not something I've included on the graphics, but I do like to add, Gleyber Torres was an all-star in 2018 and 2019. Francisco Lindor matched those numbers, matched those categories and then raised Gleyber Torres. Lindor was also an all-star in 2018 and 2019, except in the 2018 season, he was also a silver slugger, and in the 2019 season, he won a gold glove. So Francisco Lindor winning a lot of hardware, putting up some fantastic numbers, the best shortstop in New York from 2018 to 2019. Of course, I say that loosely because from 2018 to 2019, Lindor was still with the Cleveland Indians. So that is settled. Again, it is very obvious Lindor was the better shortstop between the two in these two seasons. Let's go ahead and take a look at 2020, though, and look at their 60-game seasons. Who did a little bit better then? Now, we're going to see a similar trend with these players and the numbers they put up and who technically is better if we look at the analytics here. And in 2020, Gleyber Torres, of course, spent the full season with the New York Yankees. Francisco Lindor played his last season as a member of the Cleveland organization. Gleyber played in 42 out of the 60 games with 136 at-bats, 33 hits, and a .243 batting average. Again, this was a down year for him. He really struggled at the plate. He got off to a slow start, and it did get a little bit better towards the end of the regular season. He started to heat up a little bit in the playoffs, but now in 2021, of course, he does look to come and bounce back. Nonetheless, Francisco Lindor still went off like he does in any other season. 60 games. He played in every single game of the season. Exactly 100 more at-bats than Gleyber Torres with 236. He had 61 hits and a .258 batting average. So again, much like last time, Lindor leads in the first four categories that we talk about. And then we look at the stats that kind of don't matter as much, which we referred to in 2018 and 2019, but you got runs, doubles, and triples. 17 runs for Gleyber Torres. Now, he only had 33 hits. His on-base percentage was .356, which we'll touch on a little bit later. So he was getting on base a little bit, just not scoring a ton. He did fluctuate throughout the Yankees lineup, though, quite a bit because he was struggling, and the inconsistency just of the year because it was such a crazy season. A lot of changes were underway for a lot of different teams, and the Yankees were trying to experiment with their best lineup, so Gleyber Torres shifted around a little bit. Again, just struggled at the plate. Nonetheless, 17 runs scored, 8 doubles. Again, it's a shortened season, so you're not going to see a whole lot of doubles, especially from Gleyber Torres when he's not necessarily an extra base hit hitter unless it's for home runs. And 0 triples. So those triples tie Francisco Lindor's total with 0. There's a goose egg in Gleyber Torres' first category win/tie. So Lindor had 0 triples, 13 doubles, and 30 runs scored. He leads in all those again, if not tying for those 3 base hits. You look at home runs, Gleyber Torres is typically a power hitter. Gary Sanchez, who we did in episode 3 of player comparisons on the channel, Gary did not have a lot of hits over the course of the season. He had a low batting average, but still managed, I believe, just about half of his hits were home runs. That was not the case for Gleyber Torres. He had 33 hits and 3 home runs. Francisco Lindor had 8, so obviously he's going to acquire a little more with the power stats. 27 runs batted in for the Cleveland shortstop compared to 16 for the New York Yankees. And stolen bases, not a big factor like doubles, triples, and runs. But Gleyber, Torres, and the New York Yankees shortstop had 1, Francisco Lindor with 6. The walks were pretty close, 22 to 24, but like most of the other categories, they're going to Francisco. 28 strikeouts for Gleyber Torres is 13 less than Francisco Lindor, but granted, that's in 18 less games and 100 less at-bats. So yeah, he did have less strikeouts, but if he did play a full season, those numbers probably would have been a little bit higher. On-base percentage is the first category that Gleyber Torres runs away with to some extent, a 356 OBP, which is honestly fairly decent. Like, he was getting on base a little bit. What really is eye-opening, and you can tell that he really struggled at the plate, especially, is when you look at slugging. He had a 368 slug, meaning not a lot of extra base hits. He wasn't really swinging for power a whole lot. He just struggled at the plate. So the slugging numbers were definitely down. He loses that category to Lindor. But still, with the 356 on base, 368 slugging, we'll go ahead and put up a 724 OPS. Lindor does outright lose the on-base category. He had a 335, which isn't terrible. His slugging, though, was much higher at 415, and that really propelled him past Gleyber Torres in the OPS category, where he had a 750 to end the year. OPS plus, they tied. So they tied OPS plus in 2018-2019, which is crazy, at 125, and they go ahead and do it again here in 2020, both with a 102 OPS plus. So they were just 2% above league average. Not great for either of them, but still it is above average, so you can go ahead and celebrate that. Finally, to end the 2020 season, we look at WAR. Now, I know a lot of you guys may not love this metric. I'm personally on the fence about it. I could go either way. I could care less. You know, sometimes it is just interesting to know what a player's WAR is, but more often than not, it's not a good contributing factor as to how good they are overall, you know, and of course, have a given season and everything. It's just not a great category to symbolize a player's career or individual season. WAR, if you're unfamiliar, is wins above replacement. The higher WAR you have, the more valuable you were to your given team. And Gleyber Torres had a 0.0 WAR, meaning that when he was not in the game, the Yankees won pretty much zero. When Gleyber Torres was replaced, he had no positive or negative impact on the Yankees team in that way. So if someone else was taking over at shortstop, it didn't make or break the game for the New York Yankees. Francisco Lindor had a 1.1 WAR, so when he was in the lineup, he contributed more to the Cleveland Indians. He helped them win just a few more games by being there. Of course, he played all 60 games, but if he was replaced, maybe some outcomes would have been different for this Cleveland team. Again, guys, it's self-explanatory right here. The numbers speak for themselves. They're handing it to you on a silver platter. Francisco Lindor is clearly the best shortstop. We saw it in 2018-2019. We're seeing it in 2020. Hint, it's not going to be much different in 2021. And at the very beginning of this, I went ahead and said one shortstop is clearly better than the rest in the game and in this particular comparison. I think you guys knew who I was talking about. Francisco Lindor, Mr. Smile, is your man. So we looked at 2018 to 2020. Now let's go ahead and toss it over to 2021. And these are projections by Baseball Reference. So if you guys have not seen this series so far on my channel, or if you just need a refresher here, these 2021 projections are courtesy of Baseball Reference. It is a site filled with statistics. It has virtually everything. So if you want to go ahead, take a deep dive into numbers, Baseball Reference is the place for you. But prior to the start of every season, they project what a certain player's final stat line will look like based off of career averages and trends in recent history, as well as just different algorithms that are put into place. The first number you see at the top of these graphics is percent reliability. Now, percent reliability essentially is an indicator saying how confident Baseball Reference is with these projections. So for Gleyber Torres, they have an 80% reliability rate, meaning that they are 80% confident these numbers will closely symbolize what he actually does following the end of the 2021 regular season. Now, they might not be all spot on, but they're going to be pretty close for the most part. At least Baseball Reference thinks so. And for Francisco Lindor, he is working with an 84% reliability. So they feel a little more confident with Lindor and his projections. Of course, the higher you are to 100%, the better. But these are some of the higher reliability ratings we've seen throughout the entire series. They feel good about these. So let's go ahead and dive in. I also have their baseball reference pages pulled up, so we can kind of go ahead and look at similar seasons and if these projections are indeed fair. And if I think that either of these guys can exceed the numbers provided by Baseball Reference. Starting off with Gleyber Torres, 422 at-bats, 113 hits, and a 268 batting average here in 2021. These are all, again, projections, by the way. These are not guaranteed numbers, nothing like that. This is what the computer thinks Gleyber will get at the end of the year. So again, 422 at-bats, 113 hits, and a 268 average. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm taking a look here at Gleyber's numbers. 2019, which was the last full season, he had 546 at-bats and a 278 average. But then the year before, 2018, his rookie season, 431 at-bats, so a little bit similar at-bat-wise. And in those 431 at-bats, he hit 271. So the average, I do think, is very fair. He is a career 271 hitter throughout 2018 to 2020, which makes up his entire MLB career. 271 batting average, they're projecting him at 268. I think that's fair. That's pretty good, if I'm being completely honest. For Gleyber Torres, Yankees fans would love that number to be higher, but that's not terrible, especially coming after a 243 season in 2020. So that is better than what he was able to provide last year. Now, for Francisco Lindor, he's projected 558 at-bats with 150 hits and a 269 batting average. So it is a very small difference right there. .001 is the deciding factor when it comes to batting average. 558 ABs, 150 hits. I also have his baseball reference page up. And if we look at 2019, his last full season, 598 at-bats then. That's as close as you're going to get to this 558 at-bat number. When he had 598 at-bats in 2019, he hit 284, which is one of the better seasons in his career. 313 2015, 301 2016. And then, of course, 284 in 2019. That's his third best batting average in a single season. So Francisco Lindor hitting 269. He's a career 285 hitter, if that means anything to you. But I'd say that is decent. You want to see him do a little bit more, especially in his first season with the New York Mets. It might be his only season with the Mets, as he is a free agent after, unless he gets an extension, or they just re-sign him following the end of 2021. But that is a fairly fair, decently fair evaluation right there from Baseball Reference. A 269 batting average, 150 hits, and 558 at-bats. Lindor leads in the first three categories yet again. 93 runs for the new New York Mets shortstop compared to 65 for his Yankees counterpart. 33 doubles is 13 more than what Gleyber Torres is projected. They're going to tie with one triple, according to Baseball Reference and their algorithms. And Frankie Lindor, 28 home runs. Gleyber Torres, 23. 68 RBIs for the shortstop in pinstripes. 73 runs batted in for the shortstop for the New York Mets. Huge difference in stolen bases. Again, this is another category here, though, that you can't really make or break the comparison around. Stolen bases, 18 for Frankie Lindor, Mr. Smile himself. Gleyber Torres is going to have 5 stolen bases. The Yankees don't run often. Gleyber Torres, not necessarily a speed guy. Francisco Lindor is known for his power, his speed. He's just a 5-tool player. He has it all. So once you look past stolen bases and past walks, strikeouts, again, Francisco Lindor is going to have 100 plus at-bats more than Gleyber Torres. This is all projected, remember. So in 136 more at-bats, assuming I'm doing my math right there, 136 more at-bats for Francisco Lindor. He's going to strike out 3 less times. That's incredible. Doesn't strike out often. Gleyber Torres, you can't really say the same about him. He does swing and miss a little bit more, get rung up on strike 3. 105 strikeouts for him. Lindor takes another category. So to this point, Gleyber Torres has only won in the triples category, but even then he tied it with Mr. Smile. Here are the final three statistics and categories. You have on base, slugging, and OPS. Gleyber Torres is set to take them all. A 344 on base, 483 slugging, and 827 OPS. Yes, he wins them, but by a very small margin. He wins them by a hair. 344 on base percentage. The New York Mets shortstop is projected to have a 339. Very small difference. 483 slugging to 482. Again, 0.001 determines who wins this category. We saw the same thing with batting average just moments ago. And finally, with OPS, because Gleyber Torres leads in on-base percentage and slugging, though it's not by a lot, he will go ahead and lead in OPS at 827. Again, the numbers speak for themselves here. 2021, 2020, 2018 to 2019, Francisco Lindor is set to be the best shortstop in New York. That shouldn't be a surprise to you guys, especially if you're a little more familiar with Major League Baseball and some of its top players. Lindor has been doing his thing, and he has been killing it at the Major League Baseball level since making his debut in 2015. He's clearly the best shortstop out of these two guys in our player comparison episode of who is better. And that's pretty much going to round out this episode, guys. This one was fun to talk about. We all pretty much knew where it was heading, though. Francisco Lindor, if he's not the best shortstop in baseball, he's the best shortstop in New York by far, and there is no doubt in my mind that is the case. You even really can't make an argument for Gleyber Torres other than the fact that he's a little bit younger, but still, Francisco Lindor has been doing his thing since 2015, and he's been doing it well. He's got every single tool. He is a great guy to have. The New York Mets will be able to utilize him in 2021 as he comes over and becomes their starting shortstop. Now, if this was a player comparison between Gleyber Torres and, say, Ahmed Rosario or Andres Gimenez, if this trade never went through for the New York Mets, we would maybe have a little bit of a different story. And in that case, Gleyber Torres might be the best shortstop in baseball, but because he's being compared, rather, in New York baseball, let me rephrase that there, but because he's being compared to Francisco Lindor, he just simply does not have a fighting chance. Gleyber, you're still a part of my favorite team. I'm still a big fan of you. Francisco Lindor, you're incredible. Keep doing what you're doing. Francisco Lindor is the best shortstop in New York baseball heading into the 2021 regular season. Guys, that's going to end it for me here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to drop a like down below, comment in the chat or in the comment section after this goes live, and subscribe if you haven't already. Join the team. Don't forget to go ahead and turn on your post notifications so you are made aware next time I go ahead and run an episode of this series live on the channel, as well as just post a regular upload. Guys, that's going to end it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Francisco Lindor is the best shortstop in New York baseball. I'll see you all next time. Peace.